My name's Alexandra Morton, and I am trying to protect this coast from fish farms. My background is I have a Bachelor of Science, and I've published over 20 scientific papers. I've studied killer whales, and now I study impact of salmon farms on whales, mostly salmon, and now I study viruses, fish viruses from fish farms. The main problem with fish farms is that they concentrate disease, and they are on the wild salmon migration route. So they are a feedlot. We don't let wild birds land in chicken farms because we are so afraid of avian flu. It's the same dynamic with fish farms. They breed pathogens, they pour out into the water, it distributes for many, many kilometers, and they're in the narrow migration route of our wild salmon. So our wild salmon experience far more disease and parasites than they would in the natural world, and they're just not built to survive it. Everywhere in the world there's salmon farms. Wild salmon and trout are going into steep decline. So salmon have kind of a complicated life. The parents come in from the open ocean. They go right back to the place they were born, in a river. They dig a bed in the gravel. They lay the eggs. The eggs stay for a few months, and then they hatch. Some salmon stay for a year in the lakes and the rivers. Other salmon, like the pink and chum salmon, come straight out from the rivers into the salt water. And then from there, they go up the coast and they fan out over the North Pacific over hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. And then, depending on how long they live, some fish live 2 years, some live 7. They turn around, they migrate back in the fall, they go into the rivers, they spawn, and then they die. And their bodies feed the insects in the rivers that feed the next generation of fish, that feed the trees, feed the bears. Salmon feed over 100 species. They're a very, very generous, successful animal. Yes, the whales that I was studying, the resident killer whales, follow salmon. And so to understand the whales, I had to learn about salmon. To learn about salmon, I went to the fishermen. And it was the fishermen who came back to me when the salmon farms moved in and said, hey, they're putting them all in the wrong places. There are going to be problems with our fish. And so they were the ones who first brought it to my attention. I probably wouldn't have noticed because I was looking at the whales, not the salmon. But yeah, the whales depend on salmon. Organic farm salmon in net pens is not better from a biological point of view because they still host the parasites and the diseases. You can't take farm animals and put them in the wild environment and not expect problems, because disease brews in farms. The reason nature has predators is they kill the sick ones off. They keep the population healthy, and they keep moving. But farm salmon stay in one place, there's no predators, and so disease builds up. The land-based fish farming is a huge improvement in terms of protecting the wild ocean. There's still the issue of catching fish and feeding them to fish to make more fish because we are depleting the ocean's forage fish, but land-based is far and away a better way to go. And from my point of view, it answers all the problems that we have here. It's a big step forward. Well-managed wild-caught fishery is really your best bet, because when you have a well-managed wild fishery, you have tree growth, you have killer whales, the trees make oxygen that the salmon are feeding. You have the wild salmon economy, huge stimulus package to all these villages up and down the river and up and down the coast. So a wild salmon on your plate means far more than just feeding you. It has fed everything. Its lineage has fed everything around it from the moment the egg leaves the mother's body. They start feeding the trout and the water ouzels and the streams themselves. Wild salmon are such a gift. They just spread wealth of life everywhere as they go. Farm salmon, you know, if you want to do it in a tank. But you're not feeding the world when you raise a farm salmon. When you have wild salmon, you are feeding this world, this part of the world.